We have a big update on Bray Wyatt to AEW. Also, on top of that, AEW is introducing a new talent set to make their debut on AEW Rampage. Did this individual sign with AEW? What do I believe is happening here? Also, on top of that, Fightful Select has announced that WWE is bringing back the Elimination Chamber match for the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view happening later this year. Guys, I have been for a long time, I've been talking about AEW needing to do something like this. I'm going to tell you guys how WWE can make that match feel special again, and maybe AEW can learn from them. All right, guys, if you want more videos like this, don't forget, click that subscribe button, ring that bell, get notified. Andrew Everett, former Impact Wrestling superstar, he is currently doing some amazing stuff on Deadlock Pro Wrestling, but now he will be competing at AEW Rampage. And I am excited about that. I think that is a very big deal, largely due to the fact that Andrew Everett is a really good talent. He just had an crazy, incredible main event match against Rosemary on Deadlock Pro Wrestling. He is also competing for the Deadlock Pro Wrestling World Championship belt. I believe that is taking place on DPW You Already Know, which airs on demand on the 15th. Now he has taken his talents to AEW. We don't have any clarification as to whether or not he's signing with AEW, but there is a belief that Andrew Everett could be in the same situation as Tony Nese, meaning that basically he is going to debut in a tryout match, and if Tony Khan and the team all believe that he is fit for the company, then they could potentially be making that signing. That's essentially what happened with Tony Nese. Tony Nese was given that match on Rampage, and then from there, they made the announcement that they signed him. I do think Andrew Everett's a great talent. I think he's exactly what AEW looks for. I think, if I'm AEW, I'm going to sign people that make sense, and I've talked about this on the channel before. There's just certain talent that don't make sense for AEW. I think AEW has to be very, very conservative with their spending. And truth be told, I don't think Andrew Everett's going to break the bank, which I think is a good thing, right? Like, I think that's somebody that you invest in. I think that's somebody you put on the product. And again, Andrew Everett has that experience. He's done great things. He's a former champion in Impact. Who knows if he even wins the Deadlock Championship? So that's something to look forward to. But he's a really talented worker, and I like the idea of AEW bringing him in. And I do want to admit, I kind of like the idea of AEW featuring talent that aren't signed on their television show. Because if I had to guess without looking at spoilers or anything, I'm pretty sure he's not going to win the match. I'm just being honest. But it makes sense for AEW to do stuff like that. Also, it does make sense for AEW to sign somebody like this because you have 4 shows, you have some talent you're probably not going to re-sign. I'm all for it. All right, guys, the Elimination Chamber match. Fightful Select has announced that WWE has plans to bring back the match prior to WrestleMania. This would be at their next Saudi Arabia event. Now, the reason why I actually want to talk about this and the reason why, to me, it's so important is because AEW doesn't actually have a gimmick match like the Elimination Chamber. Now, if I remember correctly, the Elimination Chamber has always been a specialty match before it became a specialty pay-per-view. At some point, WWE changed it where it became a specialty pay-per-view. There is still no clarification as to whether or not the Elimination Chamber match will be the name of the pay-per-view going into Saudi Arabia, or if it's just going to be the match type taking place at the pay-per-view. Now, the reason why that's so important to me is because I feel like that's the reason why Elimination Chamber, Hell in a Cell, both kind of became less important. Specialty matches, in my opinion, should be special, and they should only happen once in a while. It's the same reason why I don't want AEW to do death matches all the time. It's the same reason why I don't want AEW to do blood and guts all the time or a stadium stampede. Specialty matches should have its own place at its own time for a storyline. Now, looking at WWE storylines, it does make sense for them to do an Elimination Chamber match. I just don't believe it makes sense to do an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. So I'm hoping this is a new change that WWE goes with in terms of pay-per-view announcements. Hopefully it's no longer Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Hopefully it's just the main event match. Maybe Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, whatever it may be. Maybe they're involved in the match and so forth. All right, guys, and before we get to our final story of the day, Ango Plays is definitely taking off. We're just a couple hundred subscribers away from 1,000. I think at this point we're at like 715. I'm releasing AEW video game console gaming information, WWE 2K22, all that good stuff on this channel. So if you guys want to help a brother out, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, new videos every single day, AEW video game coverage. It's like really cool. If you guys could subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, I want to talk about Bray Wyatt because we have been talking about Bray Wyatt several times, several videos, what's happening with Bray Wyatt. And of course, everybody wants to know when or where will he show up. Now, the interesting thing here is John Silver from Dark Order was on the Wrestling podcast with a team from Barstool Sports, and basically he emphasized that he is not a proponent of the relentless leader speculation, meaning every time somebody from WWE gets released, it doesn't mean they're going to come to AEW and lead the Dark Order. So he actually goes on to say that I hate that so much. We get tweets like that all the time. For a while, it was like anyone that got released from WWE was going to be the next leader. So I would just make tweets, oh, I guess Adam Cole's the next leader of the Dark Order. Anyone that doesn't make sense, oh, it's going to be Bray Wyatt, right? No, it's not. So basically what he's saying is Bray Wyatt is not coming to AEW as the leader of Dark Order, which also doubles down on the same rumors that went around a few months ago that AEW and Impact Wrestling both were reportedly interested in Bray Wyatt, but they apparently were too far off on money, and Bray Wyatt wanted more money. Now, as you guys know, Bray Wyatt is currently doing some sort of horror film. We don't know when the taping ends for that. The belief was that began in November. So my belief is this. If AEW and Impact were reportedly far on the money aspect of things, and if they're not bringing him in as the leader of Dark Order, I'm going to go forward and say that maybe the idea of Bray Wyatt just really isn't coming to AEW or Impact. Now, the real question is, will AEW change their mindset on signing Bray Wyatt? Now, in the past, I've talked about Bray Wyatt joining AEW, but since then, AEW has made a ton of signings and a ton of big signings that are costly to the company. So at this point, I do want to see Bray Wyatt in AEW from the fan perspective to see what they can do differently with Bray Wyatt, how they would bring that character to life. But at the same time, too, if it costs so much money to bring in Bray Wyatt, I think it's better for AEW to be a little bit more conservative with their spending. And you know what? For Bray Wyatt, maybe it would make sense to go back to WWE if there's interest on both sides. Now, I also do want to point out with Bray Wyatt in AEW, back when the rumors first started, when Bray was first announced for the release, I mean, AEW has probably signed like 20 people since then. I mean, there's like a lot of people that AEW have signed since then. So things have changed a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact from a fan's perspective, I trust AEW's booking to do him the right way. Anyways, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget, Ango Plays, 1,000 subscribers. Can we do it? Let me know. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.